Radio Chelsea commentary with Ethan Pettit.
Radio Chelsea.
Welcome to the broadcast. It's a busy week at the gallery here in Park Slope. We presently have about 40 artists up in a show called Full House. This show was initiated in St. Paul, Minnesota back in July by one of our artists, a painter, David Rich. It has now migrated into the gallery here in Brooklyn, where the show will be up until all the way through October, and it's full of abstract and figurative painting, some wonderful stuff. Another of our artists, Todd Bienvenu, just got a terrific write-up by Jennifer Samet in Hyperallergic, the art website. If you're into abstract and figurative painting, and especially how they converge, you should read that interview. Todd also just finished up his first solo show, which was at Life on Mars Gallery in Bushwick. We're really thrilled with that development. That's my advertisement for the week. And so why am I actually doing this show? I'll tell you. Well, it's because I need a place to think out loud about abstract painting and its relationship to other things like conceptual art and postmodernity. As a general matter, I see contemporary painting against the background of the postmodern. That which forms its immediate historical past, not necessarily its historical present, but its background. So I see it in that kind of context. I respect that you can be a connoisseur of individual works, you can be a pluralist, you can take each artistic event on a case-by-case basis. Everything is absolutely individual and unreducible, and so forth. But on this show, at least for now, for the next few weeks, it is going to be about the general lay of the land. So I'm going to cut to the chase and to let you know what I'm getting at, where I really want to go. I want to look at the painting that's going on now. I want to consider it against the background of postmodern art. Then I want to blast through postmodernism and get to critical theory and some of the philosophy around and behind critical theory. And then I want to ask what kind of space is described by critical theory and postmodernism. And then I want to ask how it is that contemporary painting might dig into that space and articulate that space. And finally, my claim is that the exemplary postmodern painting, in quotes, the postmodern painting, actually has not yet been painted, or is just about to be painted. I claim also, however, that postmodern sculpture has been done very well. It gave us conceptual art, it gave us installation art, it gave us a new way to receive art in many mediums. But postmodern art theory was thought through on the level of sculpture. It is basically a theory of sculpture. That theory was then expanded to encompass a general theory that we now call postmodern. We have critics like Rosalind Krauss to thank for that. But in no way did painting undergo the same kind of overhaul that sculpture went through starting in the 1960s, and this is an important point. Critics and writers about painting back in the 80s tried to play catch-up with what had happened in sculpture by writing about pastiche and allegory and calling it postmodernism. Not quite, I think. Postmodernism is strong on sculpture, weak on painting. Always has been. Just 20 years ago, there was a show at Sidney Janis Gallery, a very important show called Conceptual Abstraction. That show generated a lot of dialogue, and I think it set the tempo for what we're still talking about with regard to abstraction. I also think the term conceptual abstraction is an oxymoron. Neither word can contain the other. You cannot have a concept of abstraction, and if you abstract a concept, it is no longer a concept, it is an idea. If you didn't follow that, not a problem. It's called jargon. Not a big deal. It was an important show. It marked off a place from which to start a new conversation about abstract painting. And if I am guilty of laying down some jargon myself, I apologize. But I am passionately committed, I really am, as a gallerist, to this idea that we are still chasing down in painting the postmodern or philosophical, whatever you want to call it, the space, the strange and unsettling environment that we have come to inhabit. This exploration has just begun for painting. And also, I don't want you to think that I'm trying to dig up a movement here, that I'm angling for a movement, that I want to cobble together a movement out of all kinds of paintings that I see by different artists who hang out together and drink together, blah, blah, blah. No. I claim that in the present painting, we can detect the lineaments of a reorganization of the currency of art as a general matter. In other words, the way art is generalized, the way art was generalized by conceptual art, the way it was generalized by installation art a few decades ago, we can detect that now in the revival of painting. Even though it's not conceptual art, it's not installation art, now we're talking about lots of discrete, chunky, works of art, usually on flat surfaces. But the generalized universalist outlook is still in place, more or less, from the postmodern afflatus of some 30 years ago. So here's the question I'll leave you with this week. Has the postmodern painting yet been painted? What does postmodern space look like? What would it actually look like in a painting? How might that space be capturing? And finally, I'll just say, check out my friend Fred Valentine's gallery in Ridgewood, Queens. There you'll see paintings by my other old buddy, David Brody. They look like Deleuze and Guattari's Nightmare, and there might be a little bit of a hint or a suggestion there of what I'm talking about here. David Brody at Valentine. The show runs through October 5th. He's an important painter. He's an important part of the Brooklyn legacy. Thank you for listening. This is Ethan Pettit of Ethan Pettit Gallery in Park Slope, signing off from
Art Radio Chelsea.
Art Radio Chelsea with Ethan Pettit.